Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have been watching these characters navigate their incredibly complicated lives for more years than I can count. And I must admit that I have deeply missed seeing Hope Logan Spencer front and center in the main storylines lately. As a longtime viewer, I always feel a distinct void when a character with such a rich history and complex moral compass is sidelined for too long. So I am absolutely thrilled at the prospect of her returning to the thick of the action. I firmly believe that a soap opera is always at its absolute best when its legacy characters are thrown into impossible situations, and putting Hope right back into the spotlight is exactly the kind of creative decision that keeps me tuning in day after day. It makes me wonder just how much her character has grown during this quieter period, and whether she is truly prepared for the emotional hurricane that is about to touch down in her life. I often reflect on the decades we spent watching Hope and Steffy Forster Finnegan viciously tear each other apart over Liam Spencer, and it brings me a profound sense of relief to see Hope and Liam finally standing on solid, peaceful ground in their marriage. For the longest time, I worried that the writers would never allow these women to exist without fighting over the exact same man. So this current era of stability for Hope is a refreshing change of pace that I genuinely appreciate. However, my relief is instantly overshadowed by my anticipation of a brand new type of conflict between them, one that does not revolve around romantic jealousy, but rather around dangerous secrets and shifting power dynamics. I predict that because Hope is no longer insecure about her relationship with Liam, she will approach this upcoming battle with Steffy with a cold, calculated confidence that we have rarely seen from her before. On the flip side of that coin, I look at Steffy and John Finnegan, and my heart just sinks at the absolute state of their marriage right now. I feel a deep, lingering frustration whenever I think about how the relentless chaos surrounding Sheila Carter has completely eroded the foundation of trust and safety that Steffy and Finn once shared. It is incredibly painful to watch a couple that once seemed so invincible slowly crumble under the weight of external manipulation and internal resentment, and I cannot help but evaluate Steffy's recent choices through the lens of a woman who is drowning in stress. Does anyone else feel like Steffy has been emotionally spiraling for months, desperately grasping for any semblance of control in a life that feels entirely dictated by her monstrous mother-in-law? This brings me to the most jaw-dropping twist of all, the revelation that Steffy and Carter Walton actually crossed the ultimate line during a drunken moment of weakness. I was genuinely stunned when the clues started pointing toward this betrayal, primarily because I have always viewed Carter as the steadfast moral compass of the Forrester Creations universe, a man who usually prides himself on honor and loyalty. My disappointment in both of them is palpable, but from a purely dramatic standpoint, I have to applaud the writers for pairing two characters who have so much to lose by giving into a fleeting, alcohol-fueled temptation. I suspect that the immense guilt they are both carrying will eventually eat them alive from the inside out, regardless of whether their secret is exposed to the world. To fully understand the gravity of this impending explosion, I think we have to closely examine the brewing corporate warfare that makes this secret even more dangerous. I was incredibly intrigued when Hope made the bold decision to join Katie Logan Spencer's fashion house without giving the Forrester family any prior warning, a move that I view as a brilliant assertion of her independence. Naturally, Steffy is absolutely furious about this sudden shift in loyalty, and I feel the tension radiating off the screen every time the Logan and Forrester business interests clash. I cannot help but wonder if Steffy's deep-seated resentment toward Hope's professional choices is blinding her to the very real danger that Hope poses to her personal life. I get absolute chills just thinking about the classic television setup where Hope happens to be in the exact right place at the exact right time to overhear Steffy and Carter desperately discussing their monumental betrayal. There is nothing quite like the rush of adrenaline. I feel as a viewer when a character is standing just outside a slightly open door, quietly absorbing information that has the power to destroy multiple families in a matter of seconds. I can vividly imagine the sheer shock washing over Hope's face as she realizes that the high and mighty Steffy Forrester has committed the ultimate marital sin. Will Hope gasp and give away her position, or will she quietly slip away into the shadows, clutching this devastating secret like a loaded weapon? I find myself intensely debating what Hope should actually do with this explosive ammunition, and it is a moral dilemma that keeps me awake at night analyzing the different possible outcomes. Part of me firmly believes that Finn has an absolute right to know that his wife has been unfaithful, and I usually root for the truth to come out as quickly as possible to prevent further deception. However, I also recognize that dropping a bomb like this would cause irreparable damage to innocent people, and I evaluate Hope's hesitation as a sign of her underlying maturity. Is it truly her place to blow up a family, or would she just be inserting herself into a tragedy that does not belong to her? I honestly never thought I would see the day, but a darker part of me strongly suspects that Hope might actually be tempted to use this devastating information to blackmail Steffy. Given the intense, escalating friction between the Logan and Forrester fashion houses, I feel a wicked sense of excitement at the thought of Hope holding Steffy's entire life hostage in exchange for corporate dominance. It would be a massive, controversial character shift for Hope to resort to extortion, but I predict that the years of enduring Steffy's arrogant lectures might finally push her over the edge into villainous territory. How incredibly satisfying would it be for Hope to finally hold all the cards, forcing Steffy to bend to her will just to keep her fragile marriage intact? We also cannot forget the massive collateral damage that this secret carries, specifically regarding Carter's own marriage to Daphne Rose Walton. I feel a profound wave of sadness when I remember that Daphne is sitting entirely in the dark, completely oblivious to the fact that her husband shattered their vows with another woman. I also remember that Hope and Carter have their own complex romantic history, and I believe that her lingering affection for him will be the primary reason she hesitates to expose the truth. Will Hope's desire to protect Carter and Daphne from a devastating heartbreak ultimately outweigh her burning desire to see Steffy face the consequences of her actions? I always try to look at these character situations fairly, and I have to point out that Hope herself is certainly no stranger to making terrible, unfaithful choices in her own past. I feel a strong sense of empathy for Hope in this moment because she knows exactly what it feels like to carry the suffocating weight of guilt after making a massive romantic mistake. I evaluate her potential silence not necessarily as an act of cowardice, but perhaps as an act of profound grace, recognizing that people are flawed and that one drunken mistake does not have to define an entire lifetime. Does Hope's own history of cheating make her the most forgiving person in this scenario, or does it simply make her a hypocrite if she decides to throw stones from a glass house? Regardless of what Hope ultimately decides to do, I am genuinely dreading the inevitable moment when Finn finally learns the truth, because a secret of this magnitude never stays buried forever in this fictional version of Los Angeles. My heart aches for Finn, a man who has already endured so much trauma and manipulation, only to have his heart broken by the one person he trusted above all others. I predict that when the truth finally comes to light, the fallout will be absolutely catastrophic, potentially leading to a bitter divorce and a vicious custody battle that will divide the entire canvas. How on earth will Steffy ever be able to justify her betrayal to a man who has literally taken a bullet for her in the past? I am simply vibrating with anticipation to see how this incredible storyline unfolds over the coming weeks and months. I feel so deeply invested in the emotional journeys of these flawed, fascinating characters, and I love nothing more than sitting back and analyzing every single nuanced glance and hidden agenda. I firmly believe that we are on the precipice of one of the greatest dramatic arcs this show has delivered in years, and I will be watching every single episode closely to see who survives the impending explosion. What do you all think will be the final breaking point that brings this ugly truth into the light of day?